This video is brought to you by thebikestig.com.au, and it's also brought to you by Dry Rider, innovative motorcycle clothing since 1980. I'm sure you've seen where Randy Mamola takes a pillion for a ride on the back of a MotoGP bike around a GP track, or you may have seen Troy Bayliss take someone for a ride on the back of a superbike. And in both those situations, the bikes have set up so that the pillion can hang on in a safe way. And what they've fitted is one of these pillion grips to the tank, to the fuel tank. So we saw these and we took an interest in these, so we thought we would try these out and give them a bit of a run and give you a review and some information about how well they work. What we acquired was the A-Sider Pillion Grip, and this is available or manufactured in Spain, I believe, and we acquired ours through a purchase that we made with a company or a distributor based in England. And first of all, they're quite expensive to get. They're very hard to get, but they're quite expensive because they're sold in euro, and if you're in Australia, unfortunately enough, to be exposed to that euro-Australian dollar exchange rate, these can work out quite hefty. So they're up in the vicinity of $500, which is a lot of money for what you're really getting. But from a safety perspective, these are second to none. They're brilliant in terms of rider safety and allowing the rider to ride the bike with a pillion on without the weight on their back that they would normally experience with a pillion under braking and acceleration conditions. There are limitations associated with it, which I'll talk about in a second. Now, this particular one attaches to the fuel tank, and it does so by replacing, and all of these parts come in the kit. It replaces, in this case, for the S1000RR BMW, it replaces the ring that houses or holds the fuel cap onto the tank. Now, all we simply do is replace this. It fits perfectly. The fuel cap operates and functions exactly how you would expect it under new conditions. And all we simply then do is remove or attach the pillion grip through the application of 5 bolts. It's as simple as that. And all of the bolts and all of the bits and pieces and the Allen keys come with the kit. Now, in our particular case, we have an adapter for the S1000RR, but when we bought it, the wrong one was provided. And it's interesting to note that they sent us the adapter for the R1200GS. So in our case, that worked out pretty well. So we have an adapter on the R1200GS, we have an adapter on the S1000RR, and we can remove and reattach this handle on either bike, because the handles are all the same, but the adapters are different for the different motorcycles. And I think that's a pretty cool idea because it gives you some flexibility. And you know, if you're going to buy another bike, you'd simply need to acquire a new adapter, which you can do from the factory. Now, from a rider perspective, the things I found about this particular grip, first of all, it frees the rider up in terms of pillion weight. The braking and acceleration conditions where the pillion's putting the hand on their back of the rider or hanging onto the rider and applying rearward force, right, no longer is a situation. We've got the pillion supporting their own weight under braking and acceleration conditions, which makes for a much easier ride from a rider's perspective. They're left to their own devices to support their own weight without worrying about what's happening behind them. The limitation with that is the pillion has their arms around the rider, so one arm either side, and they're hanging on with 2 hands. And under cornering conditions, if they're hanging on with 2 hands, it's a little difficult for this rider to transit their weight down lower on the bike through moving and changing the center of gravity. So the limitations in terms of turning would be the center of gravity is still going to be a little bit higher. You're not going to be able to do hook turns and things like that, which require you to lower your center of gravity on the bike. But that could be altered through some practice for sure, and it's something we haven't worked on yet, but we've been talking about it. And that's where the pillion hangs on with one hand, which would be the outside arm, and as they're turning, so in this case they would be turning left, hanging on with the right arm, and they simply put their left arm on the side of the rider and they hang on with that hand. And then when they go to the other side, they swap sides. A little bit difficult under flip-flop type, chicane type situations, but under slow sweepers and where there's a gradual transition from left to right and right to left, then that's probably a workable solution in those conditions. From a safety perspective, I think it's the safest thing that you can do on a motorbike because it's moving the rider forward into a better, the pillion into a better position on the motorbike, and they're supporting their own weight by hanging onto a very robust, very secure handle, which is in a position that allows the rider to move around. So I love the thing. I think they're brilliant in terms of what they do for safety, but also what they do in terms of giving the rider some freedom to ride. So highly recommended, something that I will probably have on every sports bike I get from here on in, as long as I'm taking a pillion with me.